Well, hey, Mark. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Steve.
We're excited to have you at St. Stephen's again for the summer school to bring your course. For those, though, who don't know you, could you just introduce yourself and the name of your course that you're bringing to the SSU summer school this year?
Okay, my name is Mark Braverman. I can say more about myself, but the name of the course, which says a lot about me, is Zionism, the Church's Colonial Legacy, and the Palestinian Call. I am a Jewish American. I was born in 1948, and if you're a Jewish kid born into a traditional Jewish family in 1948, you were
Yeah.
raised in a very potent combination of political Zionism and traditional rabbinic Judaism. I mean, the two were absolutely fused. The short story is, at one point in my life, I figured that fusing ethnic nationalism and my Jewish faith was not a good thing. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for the Jewish people. Frankly, not only is it not good for the Palestinian people who have been dispossessed and are experiencing a genocide, but it's certainly not good for the Jewish people because that's not who we're supposed to be.
Mm.
So I got very deeply and passionately involved with the Palestinian Christians when I went to Palestine in 2006. I mean, I had lived in Israel before that. My family, my grandfather comes from there. I had deep ties with Israel, but something told me that I needed to figure out what was going on there. And I went there, and it doesn't take long for you to figure out what's going on there once you see it.
Yeah.
I came back and came back to my Jewish community and said, "Listen, there's another story here, and we better get with it because we're in big trouble here.
Mm.
Israel's in big trouble. The faith is in big trouble." But they didn't want to listen to me. That's a whole other story, which we get
Yeah.
into in the course, where the Jewish community is at with defending this understandable but catastrophic mistake we made to keep ourselves safe.
Mm.
It's an anachronism. It doesn't fit with the 20th century. It does not fit with the Old Testament. It certainly does not fit with Jesus and Christianity. And that's where I learned it, really. I met with the Palestinian Christians who are deep
Mm.
into resistance, deeply theologically gospel-based resistance to
Mm.
empire. Um,
Yeah.
and it's good theology. So I really immersed myself in that theology, and that's really what the course is about. My feeling is, I mean, before I taught this course for the first time last summer, I thought this is a course that's needed. I
Yeah.
figured that students want this, young people, especially young Christians who love Jesus and who are looking for something. Many are looking for something that their churches and their education hasn't given them.
Yeah.
And
Right.
man, I was blown away. I mean, the course just was really, really well received. There is a
Yeah.
deep, deep hunger to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you back again this year to bring it again. So Zionism, the church's colonial legacy, and the Palestinian call. Why this course and why now?
Wow. Well, why now is really the question. Because, I mean, Steve, this is a lot bigger than Palestine. You know, Palestine is like one expression of what's going on in our world in terms of everybody seems to have forgotten what loving your neighbor means, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
the commandment. Here in my country, I mean, I'm an American, a North American, Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism and Christian Zionism are just exploding because it is an expression of the neoliberal order. It's an
That's right.
expression
Yeah. Yeah.
of what happens when nationalism and religion fuse. And the thing is, the church has a long, sad history
Mm.
of being enmeshed with empire and colonialism. I mean, now there's a big deal going on, and it's a cynical, terrible thing. of saying that the church's real problem has always been anti-Semitism. It's not. I mean, yes, the church has a lot to answer for in terms of Jewish suffering, absolutely. But the challenge facing the church today is a challenge that faced the church since the time of Constantine, which is, why are we providing the theological and institutional support for the worst crimes of humanity?
Mm.
Colonialism, slavery,
Yeah, yeah,
classism. And the church has always struggled with that. And God bless the church for struggling with that. I mean,
yeah,
we read, we read about Bonhoeffer and the Confessing Church. We read about the church's huge role in the South African struggle against apartheid. Huge,
yeah,
huge.
yeah,
The civil rights movement in our country started in the basements of black churches in the South. You know, the organizing strategy was the Gospels. So it's always an issue for the church. The church is always struggling with that basic problem, that basic conflict between its enmeshment with empire and its origin as a grassroots movement of resistance to
yeah.
empire. That's what the
That's right.
church is, and that's what Jesus was about. So
Mm,
we talk about that. There's lots and lots to read. Um,
mm,
a lot to try to squeeze in to one summer course. But it's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience for everybody. I've really, really enjoyed the students. They're coming with fantastic questions. Fantastic questions. What I'm doing this year is building more time in the course for conversation and discussion and processing. That was the feedback that I got. I mean,
beautiful.
as you can tell, I love to talk. I love to
Yeah,
lecture. I really
we
get
love to
off
listen.
doing that. Yeah, especially with the remote learning model.
Hmm.
Um, it's really, really important to build in the opportunity for conversation, which is
Yeah,
really also what I thrive on.
yeah, and also like topically, hey, I mean, like I think a lot of people, depending on where they're coming from, don't have either maybe church spaces, community spaces where there's just a freedom to speak, to talk about, everything that this course is bringing. So it also, I think, hopefully opens up space for people wrestling with the same kinds of questions, have the opportunity to do so. Um, Anything else that you think is important to share about the course topic wise?
Okay, so there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that really fit together. We start off just talking about colonialism, just colonialism between the West and the South, the colonialism in modern history. Bring it up to date because if you're really going to understand Palestine, the context, for example, for the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas, you can only understand that in terms of two things. One is you need to see it as resistance. You're not
Yeah,
excusing what
yeah,
happened, but you need to see it as resistance. And you need to see it as what a very prominent Palestinian American historian called the 100 Years' War on Palestine. I mean, the
that's right.
Palestinians have not done well for the past 100 years in terms of their own self-determination. They have been occupied, they have been colonized. And, when you do occupation and colonization, you get genocide. And that's what we got. So we need to understand the context for what's called the Israel-Palestine conflict, which is not a conflict at all. It's the reaction of an occupied indigenous population to being dispossessed and genocided.
Yeah,
Now,
that's right.
you talk this way in today's, certainly in today's traditional church contexts, and it's not okay. It's anti-Semitic. The Jews have suffered. They need this. And I understand that, but there's never going to be peace unless Israel stops doing what it's doing and the Palestinians and the Jews learn to live together in the Holy Land. They're all home there, but they need to live together. So we start off with that. Then we read liberation theology, we read
Mm,
um, indigenous theology, understanding the Bible through that lens. We get into talking about how do Christians understand the Old Testament and the promises in the Old Testament, um,
mm,
which seem to say, hey, God says the Jews should get this. And, they got to do it. It's God's will. And in fact, the day after the last non-Jew leaves Jerusalem, Jesus is going to come back the next day. A lot of people believe that, are raised on that. And we have to really dig into text and take a look at how and struggle with how to understand those difficult texts and get back to what the project was that's narrated in the Gospels, which is Jesus, a Palestinian Jew under occupation, organizing a theologically based, faith-based movement to
Mm,
oppose what the Roman Empire and the temple hierarchy that was collaborating with the Roman Empire was doing. We need to understand the Bible in context. So we'll do a lot of reading about that, a lot of wonderful Bible scholars who are trying to help Christians understand how to deal with what they already know, which is that what is happening to the Palestinians is not okay, but how do we reconcile that with what we have been taught as Christians in terms of the Jewish people and how special they are and how they're supposed to. I mean, people know it's not. People know it's wrong, especially now in
yeah.
2026.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the now, Steve. There is a genocide in progress. It's not the only
Yep.
genocide in the world. I
That's
mean,
right.
you know, Donald Trump is working on genociding the Cubans now. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
genocide going
Yeah.
on in Cuba. There's
Yeah. Yeah.
genocide
It's
going
hectic.
on I mean, in Nigeria. I mean,
Hmm.
it's happening. So genocide is a big issue. It needs to be, it certainly needs to be actively talked about in the curricula of seminaries and graduate departments of Christian
Yeah.
education.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
where the Gospels and Christian education leaves us. And, I kind of, I was talking to a professor at a local school here where I may be doing some teaching as well. He never met me. He said, "You're kind of an anomaly, aren't you? You're this Jewish guy who understands Jesus, speaks to the Gospels, and as a Jew who loves his people, is saying we have to change what we're doing and we have to adjust our own theology." So I'm excited. I'm very, very grateful that Saint Stephen's has invited me to do this because I think it's really needed.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. I mean, I think these days, especially in Christian education circles and theological seminary spaces, I mean, if we're not wrestling with the question of God amid genocide, what are we doing? What are we
Exactly.
even doing? So, I mean, we're grateful and gifted to have another voice like yours for our students and for new people jumping in the summer school to wrestle with and have the opportunity to. Maybe
Mhm.
just as a last question as we kind of finish up, and this is something you've already alluded to, as we've chatted. We're living in a day where, again, I mean, Palestine is maybe a moral litmus test right now in the context of how we imagine the world, but we're living during a season of rising authoritarianisms, new forms of fascisms, a lot of people asking the fundamental questions about what does it mean to be human, to be a person of faith, and how to wrestle with that in the context of all of this violence. And so maybe for you as somebody who has wrestled and navigated, has Israel has wrestled in the context of so much. What would you say to young, especially young folks today, who are wrestling with their faith and wrestling with what it means to be alive in the midst of so much violence? What would you say to them today?
Well, if we want to talk about young people and faith, I think that faith is the answer. I'm
Mm,
doing some writing about this right now, talking about the role of people who are studying and grappling and the role of intellectuals in our society.
hmm
And why should the church feel like it has a powerful voice? Why should the church be called to do this? And that's because the church has the fundamentals. If
mm,
you are, so I'm an American, right? So people now are talking about, people are freaking out. Half the country, maybe more, hopefully half, and then half the country are freaking out at what's happening politically in our country.
yeah,
Absolutely
fair enough.
freaking out. Okay. And people are saying, this is not us as America. And it's not the Constitution. The Constitution says this. The Constitution says that. The Constitution does not say this. The Constitution does not say that. The Constitution created the political situation that we have now because our
Yep.
fundamentals are as a
hmm
settler colonial country, state
Yeah, preach.
that set things up to protect the privilege of white landed males.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, if you're a Christian, your fundamentals are love thy neighbor as thyself
Yeah.
and be good to the Samaritan
Mm,
who's supposedly that other,
that's
right?
right.
The New Testament is absolutely clear that you bring down the temples
Yep.
and you make
Come on.
and anything that divides one people from another, the Sabbath, circumcision, the dietary laws, gone. That was important because what Jesus and Paul and the others were saying was, and what Pentecost is we have to all be one. It's one world. Now, you're not supposed to say this, but the Old Testament doesn't say that.
Hmm.
We have the prophets, and they were
Yep.
good, but they never left that sort of tribal context. So young people who are coming to St. Stephen's because they're Christian and they love being Christian, but they're looking for how that can guide their lives.
Mm-mm-mm.
You've got the secret. You've got the answer. You've got the text. You've got the fundamentals. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And you need to create that
Yep.
in your life. And this is happening a lot for my students. You need to think about how to bring that back to your churches and your communities and your
Mm,
families. If you're growing up
yeah.
in this world today and your eyes are open, that's what you need to do. I think Christian education has got the answers. And it's not about going to heaven and being saved, man. It's about how you're going to live in this world. How you're going to create a beloved community. That's what we're all about.
Oh, man. Well, Mark, thanks. Appreciate your voice always. We're so excited to have you with us again this year. So thank you for your time today to give us a little preview and understanding of the course you're bringing again. Just blessed to have you part of our learning community.
Same here. Thanks, Steve.